Hello, John, and fellow placement students. I just wanted to start by saying that this crazy global pandemic is probably making it really hard to care about school right now. Like myself, you're probably distracted by this unprecedented insanity and uncertainty. That being said, I think we've all accomplished a lot this year, so we should do our best to revel in our hard work. I encourage you to draw upon the tremendous job we've all done keeping our superiors happy. And I know for most of us that hasn't been an easy feat. But we made it. So I'm going to try to take this moment to focus and reflect on my own personal experience in regards to what I've learned about the social economy in general and what I've come to realize about myself and the skills I was able to develop throughout this placement. In an effort to employ creativity, as John had so sneakily implied would earn us a better grade, as well as to avoid the impending awkwardness of you all staring at my face for the duration of this video, I will be using some slide-like images and copy to attempt to keep you all engaged. As the year progressed and I began applying classroom concepts to practical applications, my analysis of et al. As a cooperative became much more critical, I guess you could say. I often drew upon the work of Macaulay to analyze the conflicts I was experiencing in my work. For example, as students in the social economy, we have been repeatedly taught that social economy businesses intend to fill a gap in the marketplace that conventional businesses have no incentive to fill. But the more I witnessed the exclusionary components regarding et al.'s membership requirements, Macaulay's criticism of New Dawn enterprises being class based seemingly began to apply to et al. As well. Their events and services are intended for strictly grad students and faculty, neglecting to offer their market niche, sustainable, and fair trade products to the majority of the York University community. In one of my weekly reflections, I notioned that if a credit union required certain levels of education or income for membership, which is indisputably correlated with a higher education, it would be deemed as more of an elitist club than a cooperative. To add to this point, I was astonished by the underlying tension between board members that was sometimes exacerbated as a result of various opposing agendas in regards to the work we should be prioritizing. We would be given our assignments in the morning by our supervisor, but then approached several times throughout the day with other projects, which were always delivered as urgent matters. It is important to note that our supervisor was female and newly appointed president of the board, and I often suspected that she felt her authority was being undermined by the various men on the board who were approaching us with these other projects. I was astonished to see that the board comprised the stereotypical face of traditional board of directors. There were two younger women and about 10 baby boomer generation white men. And on one occasion, we witnessed the outright shaming of the board president by a male member for allowing us to even be in attendance. To me personally, all of this was very uncharacteristic of the supposed more ethical and humane aspects of the social economy. At the start of the year, during our career workshop, I identified conflict resolution as a personal weakness. But what became more clear throughout my placement was that resolving the conflict wasn't the problem for me. It was more so the aftermath of avoiding the conflict that has profoundly affected my personal life. I really hate saying no to people. Part of the reason why I had to let my business go. Creating barriers is difficult for me. For some reason, I inherently strive to make everyone comfortable and happy. So the tension I felt from our supervisor at times really affected me, and when my effort to build rapport and establish social norms by saying things like, "Hi, how are ya?" and they were repeatedly ignored, I really took it personally, as I know my team did as well. I came to the conclusion that confronting this source of conflict wouldn't necessarily be appropriate, and resolved it by deciding that some people are a little strange and don't conform to social cues as easier as others. But what really presented problems, I think, was the combination of social economy work delivered in an academic setting. I have a really hard time just doing the bare minimum and an even harder time being unproductive. We knew we had to be in that cafe every Monday for 7 hours, and not keeping busy for me would be like watching paint dry. So I proposed all of these transformative ideas at the onset of the placement, thinking there was surely no way they would be exploited in the social economy sector. I made the mistake of demonstrating just how useful I could be early on, and it kind of felt like I had shot myself in the foot. The nature of our placement was more technical, as opposed to strictly observational. So this posed a problem because we were expected to be using every second of our time as productively as possible. Our supervisor would sometimes require mid afternoon check ins, requiring that we show her what we'd completed by then. We were constantly micromanaged, pulled in multiple directions, and additionally sent emails throughout the week with very urgent requests, causing us to halt our lives and put in a significant amount of time in addition to our workplace day. If we were sick, we were expected to make up the day another time. When I couldn't make it in due to the weather on one occasion, I was expected to work from home and was told to email my progress every hour, which I did without contest. But when the weekly emails wouldn't stop coming in, I started tracking the time spent midweek at home and reporting to the supervisor that I would only be putting in X amount of hours on the Monday due to the hours I had already clocked that week. So that was progress for me, and it was a fair compromise, I think. That would have been otherwise difficult for me to do. But still, there was no downtime or, hey, you guys have done enough for today. How about you get a head start of that rush hour traffic? Instead, as soon as we finished one task, we were immediately given a new one. On one occasion, when I was venting to John about the problematic nature of this due to the inconsistent expectations in the course, I gave the analogy that it was like going in to write a 3 hour exam and we happened to finish in an hour. But we're then given another exam and another exam until the 3 hours was up. Well, this evidently resulted in us completing a multitude of projects. When I started this placement, I had no idea our efficiency and productivity would be more acutely managed than what you'd expect in the private sector. Now, despite all this negativity, I can honestly say that I am a Wix website development expert now. I also became well versed with a program called Canva that will surely be useful in the future. But more than that, I learned that I am driven by structure and organization. I have an aversion to uncertainty and chaos, which is what I often felt every Monday morning. And I thrive on clearly defined job descriptions and duties because it allows me to exceed them in a way that isn't encroaching on someone else's responsibility and evidently giving myself more work than I originally wanted to take on. Inconsistency and inefficiency makes me feel frustrated, and I feel like I have to take on jobs by default if no one else is doing them. So, in all honesty, getting through this placement was hard for me, to say the least. But I know I am better for it. Before I sign off, I just want to say I wish you all the best in the years to come with wherever you find yourselves. And a special shout out to my partner in crime, Noah, without whom I probably would have lost my sanity on more occasions than one. Also, I just want to thank John for listening to me vent and for having to read my negative sob stories week after week. With that in mind, stay well and close to the people you love, everyone, amidst this scary time. Bye!